What's up, Titans Nation? Welcome to another edition of the Titans Traffic Update. I am your host, Gannon Cornley, and we have a full episode today. We have lots to talk about, and I'm super excited to bring yet another edition of Titans Info to the masses, to my fellow Titans fans out here. Coming up on today's show, we're going to be talking about the newest additions to the Tennessee Titans in our free agency that we just experienced. I'm going to talk about some of my personal favorite signings that I like to go over with you guys. Still some holes on this roster, as we knew there would be a lot of things to figure out for this team, and we're not going to be able to hit all of them. So there are still some remaining holes, even after the initial wave of free agency. Also, what are some draft expectations now that free agency, for the most part, is kind of wrapping up? I'm sure there'll still be some signings here and there. And then at the end, we'll talk about this new logo and these jersey reveals. I'm going to do an entire show specifically about the logo and the new jerseys, but since they're already out now, I just wanted to talk with you guys and just share the excitement that I have for what's coming to Titans football. So overall, very excited of what's coming up, and let's go ahead and get right into it since there's a lot of info to get to today. Starting with the newest additions to the Tennessee Titans. As most of you, I'm sure, are already aware, the Tennessee Titans were very active in free agency. I put out a tweet. I was a little hesitant. I was setting myself up to be hurt a little bit, not gonna lie. I thought the Titans were gonna sign some big names, but I didn't know exactly how big or how active they would really be after maybe one or two kind of splash signings here and there. Overall, though, the Titans were very active throughout the entire first day of free agency. And for it to be my birthday on March 9th, I was very happy with a lot of the additions that they got. And so, as you guys can see here, as I'm going to put on the screen, just a screenshot of Spot Track, the website, just the initial players that the Titans have signed and what most of their contracts are. All of these haven't been 100% finalized just yet. So some of these won't have numbers, but just so you can kind of see the masses for just about who the Titans were able to pick up in free agency. So starting with, you guys know, the one I wanted to sign the most, the Tennessee Titans went out and got my main man, Wan'Dale Robinson from the New York Giants, a 4-year, $70 million deal. It's going to be $17.5 million per season. Now, there are incentives that can bump that up to about $19.5 million, but overall, the Titans have so much money, that extra $2 million honestly would be a good thing because that means he's playing really well. And so overall, there was some disparity about, was it 70 million, 78 million? To be honest, I really do not care. He stayed under that $20 million threshold, which was going to start to be kind of at the highest end that I probably would have liked to see for a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson, a slot receiver, not a bona fide number one receiver in the NFL. But overall, a very good receiver, a guy who I think is going to be tremendous help to this offense, and specifically Cam Ward. He's a chain mover. Again, I went over some things in the last episode, but again, this is a guy who had 92 receptions for a little bit over 1,000 yards last season, had 4 touchdowns, had 93 receptions the season before. So he's a guy who can get open. He had 140 targets this past season. He had 140 targets the previous season, and that was with Malik Neighbors on the field. So this is a guy who can command quite a bit of target share, a guy who the Titans paid to get a lot of that target share, excuse me. Again, is he a guy who's going to be a number one bona fide receiver? Do I see 1,500 yard type seasons and 12 touchdowns, that type of season? No, I don't see that from Wan'Dale Robinson coming out of the slot, but he's a guy who I think the Titans desperately needed to keep the chains moving, keep things moving forward, keep this offense very consistent. And of course, we have Brian Daboll, so who better than him to kind of keep Wan'Dale Robinson going after having his 2 best seasons this previous 2 seasons with Brian Daboll. So very excited with Wan'Dale Robinson coming to the Tennessee Titans. It's one I called and one I'm overall extremely happy they went with instead of the signing of Alec Pierce, who got $29 million. Look, Alec Pierce is a very good player. I highlighted it last time on last episode. A guy who's never even had 50 receptions in a season. That was way too much money for my liking, so I'm very happy not only with the player that Wan'Dale Robinson is, but also the value that the Titans got and what he can bring to the Tennessee Titans. Next up is going to be John Franklin Myers. And again, I'm not going to go into depth with all of them because I have a whole nother segment. Again, we'll talk about my favorite signings overall. But John Franklin Myers coming over from the Denver Broncos, defensive lineman, signed a 3-year, $63 million deal for an average of $21 million a season. Look, very expensive contract, definitely on the higher end of what a guy like John Franklin Myers can make. But this is a guy who's coming off his 2 best seasons in his NFL career with the Denver Broncos. Had 7.5 sacks last season. He had seven sacks the season before that. This is a guy who's familiar with Robert Saleh. When he was on the Jets, he had sack seasons of 3, 6, 5, and 3.5 while under Robert Saleh with the New York Jets. So he's familiar with the defense. And again, you're pairing him with Jeffrey Simmons. How could you not be excited about that? So John Franklin Myers coming over from the Denver Broncos. Alontae Taylor was signed a cornerback from the New Orleans Saints on a 3-year, $58 million deal, 19 and some change per season. Again, Alontae Taylor was, in my estimate, the #1 cornerback going into free agency. So the fact that the Titans were able to land him just screams volumes to what Mike Bergonzi and his staff was able to do to bring him over. This is a guy who can play in the slot, played a ton of snaps in the slot, but he also can play outside as well. So very excited for the versatility that Alontae Taylor brings. A former Tennessee Vol, so for you Tennessee Volunteer fans, I'm not the biggest volunteer guy in the world. I'm a Gator at heart, but never can go wrong with a player coming home, a player who the home fans will be excited about. So very happy for you guys and very happy for the Titans to get Alontae Taylor. This is something I'm going to be very transparent with you guys on this podcast. I will tell you if I don't know something, and we will learn together. We're going to grow together. The Titans signed a cornerback named Cordell Flott. This is a guy who I did not know. I had no idea who this was. And when they signed him into the contract that they signed him to, a 3-year, $45 million deal, 15 on average, I had never even heard of this guy. But after seeing some tape on him and hearing Giants fans, Giants coverage and media talk about him, I'm pretty excited. He seems pretty feisty. He seems like a guy who Robert Saleh sought after. There was a report that came out that said that he was all but actually signed on the dotted lines to go back to the New York Giants until Robert Saleh picked up the phone, personally called him and said, "Hey, we have a very intricate plan for you on the Titans that I think is going to make it worth your while to not re-sign with the Giants and come over to the Tennessee Titans." That is what I'm talking about, and that is why I'm so excited for a guy like Robert Saleh to be our head coach. He is a player's coach. He's a guy who seems like he knows how to get the best out of his players, and he's a really good recruiter. There's tons of players, John Franklin Myers being one of them, who are coming back saying they want to play for a guy like Robert Saleh. Cordell Flott never played for Robert Saleh, and Saleh was able to convince him to come over to the Tennessee Titans. So very exciting about that. For him to basically want to be going back to his team, and Saleh just gave him one last chance, one last, ditch effort. Hey, we think that we can make you, hit your ceiling with this defense, and he ended up signing with the Tennessee Titans. So I'm very excited to see what he can bring there. Again, this is a guy who I didn't have a whole lot of information on, didn't really know much about him whatsoever prior to the signing. So I'm not going to sit here and say it's an all-star signing, anything like that. But certainly, this is a guy who's been a starter for a few years in the NFL, and sounds like a guy the Giants desperately wanted back, and Robert Saleh was able to steal him from the Giants. So very happy about that. The Titans were also able to take another Giant, and you'll see this will be a common theme here for the Tennessee Titans. Daniel Bellinger, tight end. They signed him to a 3-year, $24 million deal. This is a guy, he's more of a blocking tight end, so this is not a Chig Okonkwo replacement. This is a guy who's going to go hand in hand with Gunnar Helm. I think Gunnar Helm is all but set in line to be the #1 tight end for the Tennessee Titans. And so Daniel Bellinger is going to be more of a blocking guy. He can catch the ball. He had the most yards of his career last year, but not a lot of receptions. Just 19 receptions for 286 yards, 2 touchdowns. Nothing to write home about overall. But he's this guy who's going to be able to get in there and block. He knows Brian Daboll's system. That's something I really like. He's going to be able to teach that to the other tight ends, mainly Gunnar Helm and any other tight ends that the Titans bring in to this offense. So he's more of a teacher for Brian Daboll on the player side of things. And he's somebody who we know if we get into a pinch, he at least knows what he's doing out there, even though he might not be the most athletic, the most freakish tight end athlete, in the world. And so those are kind of like the main splashes right up front, and I'll kind of roll through the rest of these without a ton of stats in detail, but just so you guys can see here on the screen, who the Titans have signed. But they brought in an outside linebacker in Jake Martin from the Washington Commanders to a two-year deal. Excuse me, Austin Slotman, also come over from the New York Giants. I am led to believe he's a center. I am led to believe that he is more of a depth piece and not necessarily a starting center. He has starting experience. Obviously, we know the Titans cut Lloyd Cushenberry, and so they went into free agency needing a starting center. I'm just hearing reports that he's not necessarily aligned to be the starter, so there may be some more stuff, and we'll get into what the Titans need to fill out later on in the show. But I'm led to believe that he is more so of a depth piece and more of kind of like the Corey Levin role. For those of my Titans fans who know, Corey Levin was a backup center for the Titans for a very long time. He ended up going somewhere else this offseason, but I think he's led to be more of the Corey Levin and not necessarily the starter for the Titans moving forward. So, and his contract reflects that, right? A 2-year, $9 million deal. Not expecting him to be, a home run signing there. So just a little heads up on that. Jordan Elliott coming over from the San Francisco 49ers, obviously played with Robert Saleh, defensive lineman, on the 49ers defense with Robert Saleh last year. Again, more of a rotational guy, not going to be a starter, just a rotational depth piece, bigger body. I think that honestly is your T'Vondre Sweat replacement. He's a huge guy. He's your nose tackle. He'll be able to be a good run stuffer for the Titans. So that's your T'Vondre Sweat. Again, like I said in the last episode, we used to have guys like, oh man, his name is slipping me now. Played for the Chargers, Tierra Tart. He played for the Chargers last year. Undrafted free agent. So a guy, we drafted T'Vondre Sweat with the second round pick just a couple years ago. And that was really, really rich for a lot of people's blood, which is why he fell where he did. And a lot of people had him a lot further down on their consensus boards. And so the Titans are showing that they're replacing that role, that run stuffing role, with the guy who's making just $4 million a season. So that's kind of his role. We do have a new punter, and we needed a new punter. Tommy Townsend replaces Johnny Hekker. Johnny Hekker was not good at all last year. He was not able to punt the ball very far, wasn't able to pin the defense back to where we needed him to. So we're getting Tommy Townsend, a guy who's been a very good punter for the most part. He was really good with the Chiefs, was on the Houston Texans, and was a really good the last couple of seasons. I believe he was there for 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. And so Tommy Townsend was a really good piece for the Houston Texans. So happy to take him from a rival, bring him over to the Titans. Morgan Cox, our guy, long-term lawn snapper, will be a Tennessee Titan, I think, until he decides to hang it up. No reason why not to continue to bring him back. And again, as you guys can see on the spot track screenshot I have here, again, there's some guys who don't have all the details, so I don't have the money updates just yet, but they'll start to come out as the days go. Again, these guys won't be blowing up the cap space by any means. We've kind of gotten through some of the bigger signings that the Titans have done. Malik Herring coming over, defensive edge piece from the Kansas City Chiefs. The Titans re-signed Jarek Reed, safety. They picked him up toward the tail end of last season, so he's just more of a safety depth, not going to be adding to any starting role by any means. Kylan Granson, tight end from the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, he's your tight end 3. I think he has a little bit more versatility than Daniel Bellinger from a catching standpoint, but again, he's a guy who is kind of going to be that Chigakonkwo, a poor man's Chigakonkwo. He's not doing a whole lot of blocking. He's going to be trying to catch the ball. They're going to move him around a little bit, be the motion guy, in 3 tight end sets or 2 tight end sets. And so I wouldn't expect him to be doing a whole lot of blocking. Won't be seeing him a ton on the field, I would imagine. We have a backup quarterback in Mitchell Trubisky. It's not confirmed on Spot Track. I do believe I saw that his contract is, I think it's a 2-year $14 or 2-year $15 million deal, if I'm not mistaken. An excellent backup. I think for Cam Ward and the Tennessee Titans is a guy, again, has worked with Brian Daboll in the past. He's a guy who can totally come in and potentially win you a game, God forbid. Everyone knock on wood right now. Cam Ward happens to get hurt, something happens. He can just step right on in and kind of take command of the offense. And so a guy, again, he's not going to light the world up on fire. He's a backup for a reason. But he's a guy out there. He's not a Kyle Allen or a Brandon Allen who's going to go out there and, you guys saw what happened in that Jags game in Week 18 this past season. So we don't want that. This is a guy who can potentially win us a game if we go heavy, heavy running, limit how much he can pass. He's a guy who is mobile, can move a little bit. So I like the Mitch Trubisky signing overall. For the Titans. Tony Adams, another safety. I knew the Titans had to get a third safety to pair with Amani Hooker and Kevin Winston Jr. Tony Adams, again, another guy who played on that New York Jets defense with Robert Saleh. He's coming over from the Jets just this previous season under Aaron Glenn. Again, safety depth. I think he's a solid third safety. Again, we don't have the numbers quite yet on what he's going to be making. It's not going to be world breaking, but this is a guy who just can step in, will know the defense, again, can teach the defense to Amani Hooker, to a young guy like Kevin Winston Jr., knows exactly what Robert Saleh expects and what he can do. And he's versatile. It sounds like he can be in the back. He can play a little bit, kind of like a box safety, but it sounds like they really want him to be more so in the back end of things. And you can kind of let Amani Hooker and Kevin Winston kind of be that bigger body safety that can go and, be an asset in the run game. So Tony Adams will be a guy who they can just keep in the backfield, keep in the back secondary, and just kind of oversee things overall if we get into a pinch. So I love that. And then lastly, who the spot check has officially had the Titans signing is Joshua Williams, another cornerback from the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a guy who was mainly a special teamer. He got on the field. By no means, he certainly can play corner. But I wouldn't expect to see him a ton on the field. I still think the Titans will address cornerback at some point in the draft. They may even go get another cornerback in free agency at some point, just because there weren't hardly any cornerbacks even on the roster outside of Marcus Harris, the 6th-round draft pick from a season ago, and he's a slot guy, right? So I think the Titans aren't done at corner, but Josh Williams is a guy who can provide depth if you're in a pinch, and he's going to be mainly a special teamer. Obviously he was there when Mike Berganzi was with the Kansas City Chiefs, so this is a guy who Berganzi has vetted, knows real well, and I would assume a really hard worker, in and out of the locker room. So those are the main ones so far through Spot Track. Now, there are a couple more signings that aren't on there yet. We did re-sign Joey Sly as our kicker, signed him to a 1-year deal. The guy who went 28-35 last year, pretty decent season. We all know as Titans fans, we've had some hardship and had some struggle with stability at the kicker position. Nick Folk was pretty good, but he was really old, didn't really fit the timeline of what the Titans were trying to do. So Joey Sly, guy I think just turned 30, had a pretty decent year. Again, they're not committing major money to him or any major future asset with him. Just a 1-year deal. Again, I thought for the most part he was pretty solid. Has a big leg. Was able to make some pretty long field goals. Hit a 60-yarder, I believe, at one point. He might have made multiple. So this is a guy who can have a big leg, and for the most part, it's pretty accurate. He made all but one of his extra points last year. I believe he went 26 of 27. So overall, I'm happy with that. The Titans also signed a Cordell Vlausen, a guard from Cincinnati. Again, he was a starting guard for the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't have any of the actual details, even from the Titans official website. They have him down as just signed. They don't have any of his contract details just yet. Another guy I'm led to believe potentially is going to be offensive line depth, not necessarily a starting right guard. Again, he was a starter for the Cincinnati Bengals for the last 4 years. He can play left guard, he can play right guard. He has some versatility. But overall, I think that the Titans, at least in my opinion, should be striving higher than what they're doing. So we'll see how it all shapes up. But ultimately, he's going to be another guy who the Titans can kind of plug and play at the guard position. And then lastly, the Titans made a trade. We traded for defensive lineman Solomon Thomas. We basically just did a 7th-round pick swap with the Dallas Cowboys. Solomon Thomas is a former 3rd overall pick from the San Francisco 49ers back in 2017. He's a Robert Saleh guy. He played with Saleh with the Jets. He was on the 49ers when Robert Saleh was there. And so this will be his third time getting to play with Robert Saleh. He also has overlapping time with Austin Whitecotton, the Titans defensive line coach. He was with the Cowboys just last season. Whitecotton was also with the Jets when Robert Saleh was the head coach in New York there as well. So lots of familiarity, lots of former Jets, lots of former New York Giants as well. Familiarity was the biggest thing for the Tennessee Titans, as you can tell, going into free agency. And why not, right? Why would they bring in a bunch of players, even if they're quote unquote better or quote unquote cheaper or whatever you need, to feel better about the signing? It would make more sense for the Titans to go out and get guys who know the offense or the offensive coordinator who knows the defense and the defensive coordinator, and somebody who Mike Berganzi has vetted and his staff feels comfortable bringing into the locker room. Amir Solomon Thomas is a great teammate, a great guy. He's been, the Walter Payton Man Award nominee multiple times. So they're bringing in good guys to have in the locker room, familiarity, and this is something the Titans need. They need a culture. You got to build a culture. We're building from the ground up here. So they have got to really establish the message in the locker room, even if it's not the most talented team in the world. I think you just can raise your ceiling, just by one or two games, just by having a really, really solid culture. And that's something I think Robert Saleh and Brian Daboll are really bringing in right now. So, we, of course, have had only 3 wins the last 2 seasons. I think just simply by actually building a culture. Seems like, a lot of players were cool with Brian Callahan, but he was not a guy that these guys should get fired up for and rally around. I think that really does mean something. As a former player, like I've been in these locker rooms, it's a lot harder to get up, even if you're not a really good team. It's a lot harder to get up and want to play for guys, that you don't really believe in, that you don't feel like, has your best interest at heart or, knows what they're talking about or things of that nature. So it starts with good culture, guys, making sure the locker room is in a good spot. And so I think that just in itself can be another win or two, because in a game where you're probably going to lose or a game where it doesn't seem like you have a chance to win, just every guy, all the entire team being able to be on the same page, not quit and fight, can see a comeback or can see an upset win or something like that, right? So just in getting these culture guys overall, I think can really be a ceiling riser for the Titans. So and that's ultimately what we're about, right? We're trying to set this thing off right, and we have to be better than we were the previous 2 seasons. Just off rip, like even though it's Saleh's first year, like we have to be better. So I love that, and so I'm going to kind of transition now over to my favorite signings. I kind of alluded to them, and of course, they're going to be the bigger signings, but number one, again, Wan'Dale Robinson. Again, I explained it earlier, but this is a guy, again, man, who I think is going to be a really big chain mover for the Titans offense. Again, he's a guy who's going to be that Wes Welker, that Julian Edelman type wide receiver for the Titans. Again, remember, Brian Daboll runs the former New England Patriots offense. He runs that. So, he studied under those Tom Brady years and things in those years with Belichick. So he's bringing that to the Tennessee Titans. So it's going to be a lot of quick, intermediate, first read. They're going to try to speed up Cam Ward's, reading this defense. Because again, Cam Ward, much as I love him, he's not the most accurate quarterback. So they're going to be looking for how can we get the ball out really quickly, so he doesn't have to fit it into the tightest of windows, because it's just not something that's his strong suit right now. Now, can he grow into that? Can he eventually become, a sniper on the field? Absolutely. We already know Cam Ward can put the ball in some crazy positions. He has crazy arm angles. He can throw the ball where he wants to a lot of the time, but can he do it consistently at an NFL level? We just didn't see that last year, which I think led to some inaccurate passes into his overall passing completion percentage. It was a little bit down, less than what all of us, of course, would have hoped it would have been. So I think that this offense is going to be very helpful for him. And so having a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson, easily my number one free agent signing so far for the Titans. But next is Alontae Taylor. Alontae Taylor, again, this is a guy who has versatility, can play in the slot, can play outside as a cornerback as well. Again, he has 4 interceptions in his career. He was second on the team with the New Orleans Saints in tackles last year, second amongst all defenders. This is a guy who loves to tackle. He loves to stick his nose in there, and he's not afraid to get his hands dirty. I love that as a former cornerback myself. I love that. I love a guy who's not afraid to stick his nose in there, hit somebody, and he brings height, man. He's got juice. I love it. Like, I think you guys are going to see him flying out there. He's going to be number 24. He's rocking the Titans gear already. I freaking love it. Even before they unveiled the new jerseys and stuff like that. So having Alontae Taylor on this team, I think it's going to be juice for the Tennessee Vol fans. I think he's going to bring a lot of swagger to the Tennessee Titans and this Titans defense, and you're going to see him in all different positions. And so I think overall that's going to be a really, really good thing for the Tennessee Titans. And then next, honestly, I mentioned it before, but yeah, John Franklin Myers, putting him next to Jeffrey Simmons. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yeah, good luck to all these interior offensive linemen that the Titans are about to go up against. They are about to cause havoc. I'm telling you right now. John Franklin Myers and Jeffrey Simmons next to each other is dangerous. It's going to be very, very, very dangerous. And I think right now that is what the Titans are going to be leaning on. Pressure from the interior. They're getting guys like Jermaine Johnson, guys who are smart, really good run defenders, who can set the edge to keep everything right in the middle so those two can just tear it up. That is something that we really struggled with last year from the edge position. We had guys like Arden Key who consistently get out of their gap lane, trying to bend, go all the way around the offensive tackle and stuff like that, and it leads to an outlet for the quarterback to get outside of the edge. I think Jermaine Johnson and whoever they end up having at the other starting edge, whether it's Firmino Ladejo, whether it's someone else they sign or draft, they want to keep pressure in the middle for Jeffrey Simmons and John Franklin Myers to wreak havoc. And having these two guys in the middle, I'm loving it. I'm gonna love that rotation. I'm just thinking about it right now. Oh my goodness. And then lastly, I think my final favorite signing, just out of everybody, again, is Mitchell Trubisky. Again, a guy who can come in and be serviceable. The Titans really have not had a serviceable backup quarterback for quite some time. Really, Will Levis, ironically enough, was probably the most serviceable backup quarterback when we had Ryan Tannehill, and when he went out with an ankle injury. And then you had Will Levis come in because we had Malik Willis, who was still not ready to play at that point. And then 2 years ago, when Will Levis was a starter, Mason Rudolph kind of played better than Will Levis at times, but Mason Rudolph was not the answer. He was not good enough to help the Titans get out of a pinch. And so I think Mitchell Trubisky can actually win the Titans some games if he's called into duty, or if he just has to play like a quarter or a series or two, or a half, or just something to that nature. I think that he can steer the ship a little bit and take control and not go off the rails. So again, we don't want to be turning over the keys to this guy, but this is somebody who knows how Brian Daboll wants him to play, can teach the offense to Cam, can be a really good mentor, and overall seems like a really good locker room guy. I saw a lot of Bills fans was hoping that he would return, and they were wishing him good luck to the Titans and saying we got a good one as a backup. And those are guys who obviously adore Josh Allen. So I'm really happy for Mitchell Trubisky getting this deal. I think it's well earned and deserved as far as backups are concerned. And I'm very happy that the Titans were able to bring him in. I think it's perfect. He's exactly who I would have wanted for the Titans to come out. I wouldn't have minded Geno Smith as well, but he's going for a starting spot right now. For the New York Jets. So that just tells you right there, I don't know if there's too much difference between Trubisky and Geno Smith right now based on the season that he just had. So I think we got certainly one of the better backups in the NFL, and so that's certainly one of my favorite signings. So transitioning gears here, the next thing I kind of want to get into is just some holes that we need to fill. So the Titans still, we're kind of in the danger zone, and that's something I'm going to kind of coin as we continue to go through this on this podcast on this platform. But the Titans are in the danger zone a little bit at the center and right guard position. Kevin Zeitler, what are we doing here? Are we gonna sign him? Sounds like both sides are interested. Sounds like he doesn't really want to leave the state of Tennessee based on just preference with family and stuff like that. But I don't know what the Titans are waiting on. Like, this is a guy who you knew was a free agent. You knew he wouldn't be signed into a long-term deal. So I guess my question is, like, what are the details, that the Titans are needing to work out? I don't exactly remember what he was getting paid last year, but it's got to be something similar to that, right? He's only on a 1-year deal, worth, I think it was in the teens. I don't know if it was anywhere from 13 like 16 million, for one season. I don't know why the Titans wouldn't be able to do that again, especially with them just now cutting, L'Jarius Sneed today. And so I don't really know what the Titans are waiting on, because that should be an easy right guard position to fill. He was healthy, relatively healthy for the most part, and he was by far the Titans' best pass protector. He was one of the best pass protectors in the entire NFL last season. So why not bring him back on just a 1-year deal? You have Boston now coming over from Cincinnati. There's your depth in case his body doesn't hold up for just one more season. I mean, he is 36 years old, so Zeitler's old, and so if his body can't hold up, you already got some Zeitler insurance. Why not just bring him back, have him be your right guard, make the money right? We still have a ton of money. My estimation is I think the Titans have still around 43, I think just shy of 48, $49 million of cap space to play with still. So we have enough money to sign Zeitler. So I really don't know what the Titans are kind of waiting on here, and it's kind of getting a little concerning. Same with the center position. Slaughterman, I like I said, everything to Slotman, I keep calling him Slaughterman. Austin Slotman, everything that I have led to believe is he's just another Corey Levin. He's a career backup guy who can start for you in a pinch, 2-3 games, and not be a disaster. But, thinking that he's going to start a 17-game season, and is that really what you want for Cam Ward going into his second season? So it's concerning that they haven't fulfilled these spots just yet. On the offensive line, considering they made a hole with center, because Lloyd Cushenberry, most of us thought was a surprise cut. And then you thought Zeitler would be an easy guy just to slot right back in there. So we thought we were going to be keeping the offensive line together. They're being hesitant bringing back Zeitler at right guard, and then they made a hole at center, and they haven't gone out and signed any of the main center free agents, whether it was a Linderbaum, a Dylan Parham, Mays. They haven't gotten any of these guys. And so Jenkins recently got signed to the Browns, I believe is where he's going. So I'm really wondering what is the plan at center, because it's kind of getting to a point where I'm worried that Titans are going to end up having to use a pretty high draft pick on a center and or a guard. And I would much rather than be going after premium positions. And that leads me to my last hole that the Titans still have not really addressed yet, which is edge rusher, opposite of Jermaine Johnson. Him and Femi Oladejo are kind of the same type of guy. Bigger body guys who are going to set the edge, be a really good run-stopping edge, and use a lot of power. But they're missing that speed edge. And so, of course, we have the 4th overall pick, right? And so I think that's why David Bailey, I think, is very much on the table for the Titans. If he's there, I think he will be the pick, if he's available at 4 for the Tennessee Titans. But just in case he's not there, the Titans got to sign somebody, right? It sounds like Jake Martin's kind of that speed to power guy. He had 5.5 sacks last year, which is pretty good. But I don't think that he's in any position to be a starter in the NFL. And so, they're just playing with fire a little bit, and I'm kind of worried about that. So I would like to see them at least sign another speed edge rusher, just as in case Arvell Reese and David Bailey are gone. And it sounds like the Titans may not be the biggest fan of Ruben Bain. Again, I like Bain. I think he would be awesome to have on this Tennessee Titans defensive line, but we don't know for sure. So I'm a little concerned about what the Titans are doing there. So we'll see how it all shapes out. But those are certainly three things, three positions: center, guard, and edge rusher that still need to be addressed. The Titans still have money, but a lot of the main guys that will make real impact on the season, like starting level guys, are pretty much all taken at this point in free agency. So I don't know unless they're trying to trade for somebody. I don't really know what the plan is yet. Again, I still have full faith in Mike Bergonzi, but I'm really not sure what the plan is moving forward. So again, we're not even 5 days into free agency yet, so there's still plenty of time for the Titans to figure something out. But it's just the clock is ticking. They're certainly on the clock to try to get that figured out. So next, we're gonna talk about some draft expectations. So I kind of alluded to it now, like after free agency. So offensive line definitely has to be in the consideration for the top four draft picks for the Titans. Again, the Titans have pick number 4 in the first round, 35 in the second round. I believe it's pick 66 in the third round, and then pick 101, the very first pick of the fourth round. And they are gonna have to, I think, use a center or an interior offensive line pick within those first 4 picks at the rate that they're currently going. So I really don't know where they're still leaning at number 4. I personally think that they are going to go David Bailey at number 4 if he's available. I think no matter who's there, if Arvell Reese and Bailey are there, I think they're going Bailey. Arvell Reese and Bain are there, I think they go Bailey. Bailey and Love, they're going Bailey. So the question really is, if David Bailey doesn't make it to 4, is that where our Jeremiah Love situation comes in again? I would love for the Titans to take Jeremiah Love. I think that is another offensive weapon for Cam Ward and for this offense. He's a hard runner. I think he's easily the best player in this draft. If you can be drafting 4 and get the best player in the draft, I think that you could be in a much worse position. So especially because, again, I'm coming from the position that I don't think any of these 3 main edges, Arvell Reese, David Bailey, or Ruben Bain, I don't think any of those 3 are going to go on to be a superstar edge. Not to say that they won't be a good player. They could go on to be a top 15-ish, type guy. I think that's the ceiling for all 3 of these guys. I just do not see them being a Max Crosby, Trey Hendrickson, a Micah Parsons, a Myles Garrett, Von Miller, the Bosa boys. I don't think they're going to be on that. Aiden Hutchinson, Will Anderson. Those are all guys who got drafted super, super high. And I just don't think that any of these 3 guys are on that level. And so I think they could be in a situation where they're like a DeMarcus Lawrence type player, a really good, I think that can be their ceiling, a really, really good edge rusher, but never a top 5 to 10 edge rusher. Like a guy who's bona fide, you're willing to pay $40 million a season for, because trust me, that's what they're about to get paid. Danielle Hunter just got paid a 1-year, $40 million deal to the Houston Texans. That's what an elite pass rusher is going to warrant. I don't think that they are $40 million a year guys. I don't think any of those 3 will. So I'm of the position that go the best player, especially when it's at a position where it's not necessarily a need, but you certainly could upgrade. Tony Pollard's not a bad player, but you could definitely upgrade from him. And the Titans offense needs some more juice. Even with Wan'Dale Robinson, even if they keep Calvin Ridley and draft a receiver, and Chim DK takes the next step, and Gunnar Helm's a good side end 1, and Alec Eilmaner, steps it up into, like, they still need a lot more offensive power. That'll be realistic. All these guys are not going to be A+, prospects next year, or A+, players next year. So I think the Titans still need some more offensive firepower, and I think Jeremiah Love instantly gives you that, and he's the best player in the draft. So that's why I think it's less likely the Titans go Caleb Downs, because they just drafted a safety pretty high. Amani Hooker, before last year, was a pretty good starter. He sucked last year, to be honest. But I think they're not going to go Caleb Downs because it's like you already have two pretty decent safeties overall, and you just spent high draft capital at one of them. So it makes far more sense to go Jeremiah Love, a guy where you are at least, in my opinion, significantly upgrading a position. Sonny Styles is another guy who's like kind of fits in that category. But again, how much is an off-ball linebacker going to impact your season? At least right away. Over the course of his career, absolutely. But just off rip, I really don't see exactly how much he's going to be able to do that. So I'm really looking at pick 35. I'm going to make some draft predictions later, but just know that that's a pick I could totally see the Titans having some movement with, up or down. I think the Titans are totally at play to move up or down. So I'll eventually make some more draft predictions the closer we get to the NFL draft. But I certainly think that they're not going to be married to staying at pick number 35. So just be prepared for that. And I think the Titans could be looking to, especially with how free agency has kind of gone, with still needing a starting edge, a starting center, and a starting right guard. I think that they could be looking to trade up or down to fulfill one of or multiple of those needs in a trade down scenario. So just look for them. That's kind of what I'm kind of expecting now after these moves, that 35 is very much on the trade block to move up or back, however Borgonzi sees fit. So, and obviously depends on who's on the board and at what time. So that's just kind of my draft expectations now that the first week of free agency has kind of settled down. And then the last thing I'm going to end with is just pure excitement, man. How could y'all not be fired up for the new logo and the Tennessee Titans new jerseys? Oh my goodness. As you guys can see, I'm sharing it on my screen right now. Oh my goodness. So, first and foremost, the logo is going to take me some time to get used to. I'll totally be honest with that. I don't think that it's the greatest logo in the world. I was a guy who liked the flaming thumbtack. I like the flames. I thought it made the Titans unique. It made them different. But was it the coolest, logo in the world? No. Anybody who's crying over the flames and refuses to support the new logo is just a crybaby. Nobody was calling the Titans logo the greatest thing they've ever seen until we announced that the Titans were getting a new logo. Nobody. We have fans from other teams. Oh my goodness, the Titans. Why would they get rid of the flame? You guys, other fans used to make fun of the Titans for their logo, how weird it looked, how different it was. Why in the world now all of a sudden it's one of the coolest things ever, and now everybody loves the two-tone blue and all this and that? I just think it's utter nonsense. People just hate change, and I think 10 years from now, absolutely nobody will care. And so that's just kind of how I feel about the logo. Again, it's very modern, it's very basic, but it will look good on apparel. Like, it's gonna look nice on a hat. It's obviously asymmetrical. It was hard. I will say it was hard to envision Titans gear or Titans logo on their gear, because the logo, you never know where to put it. Do you put it right straight down the T and then the flames are hanging off to the side? Or do you have the flames kind of like right in the middle? I have a Titans shirt on right now with the old logo on it. And it's just harder to put on apparel. And so the Titans now have, with this circular logo, it's just like you're gonna be able to identify it. It's not gonna look weird. It's not gonna look out of place. You can put it smack dab in the middle of a shirt, a hat, a hoodie, or whatever, and it looks really, really good on a helmet. So I'll go on a further rant on my next episode, because I'm gonna do one that's specifically just about the logo and the uniforms, and that will be mainly kind of geared towards the uniforms. But the uniforms are my favorite by far. I think it immediately is a top 3 jersey kind of combo, home and away jersey within the NFL. 100%. Call me biased, I don't care. I think they knocked it out of the park. The guitar strings, I'll get into that. I'll save that. We'll get into that on my next episode. But overall, I think the Titans smashed it. And I'll give my overall ranking on the next one. But I think I'm very positive about the rebrand. I love the colors. I love how it pops. So, but I'm just wanted to share that with you guys. I'm very excited. I think I'm going to continue to say this. Within the last 20 years, this is the best time to be a Tennessee Titans fan. I'm telling you this now before they even play a game in 2026. And I already know some people will say you're crazy. The Titans were in the AFC Championship game in 2019, 2020 season. Like they were the 1 seed in 2021. How was this time where they just coming off a 3-14? Because guys, like the Titans were in a spot where they were kind of going all in, but it was all for, that 2019. They had a small window. Basically, what I'm trying to get at is they had a very small window to go win it all. We struck lightning in the bottle that Ryan Tannehill was as good as he was because Marcus Mariota was still our guy. We brought in Tannehill as insurance in case Mariota just couldn't get it done or he got hurt again. And so it just happened to go so well in the first season we brought Tannehill in. He took us all the way to the AFC Championship game. Really, Derrick Henry did that. And it immediately opened up our window. A.J. Brown was a hit. Jeffrey Simmons was a hit. And so it just immediately opened up our Super Bowl window. And we had a chance in 2021, and we pissed it away in that Cincinnati playoff game. But the Titans had a window, but it was very small. Tannehill was already an older quarterback. Derrick Henry was not going to play forever. We were lucky that he was as good as he was, being an older running back. And so I think that I say that this is the most exciting time now because the Titans have such a much longer window that they can be great. If we get this right, if Robert Saleh is the guy, if Mike Bergonzi is the guy, just those two alone, we'll figure out Cam Ward, but just those two guys alone, if we have the head coach and the GM right, that's going to immediately lift up our ceiling, lift up our floor. And I think that that's going to carry us season after season. The message will continue to preach. More guys will want to come in. Other free agents each season after season will want to come to the Tennessee Titans and be a part of something. And so I think, and then you get into Cam Ward, right? He's only going into his second season. I think that we're just in a spot now where, the new stadium, the new logos, the rebrand, we're just so new, and you can just start to see some of the pieces. Again, are we gonna win the Super Bowl next year? No, I do not expect that at all. We do awesome, obviously, but I think you can just start to see the pillars that are being built, and I think that there's just so much newness and so much guys that have come from other places that they may have failed, but they've also had success in certain areas that I think just tying this all together, I think it's going to come together really, really well. And so I'm excited. I'm a firm believer in what the Titans are doing. So you can say I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, whatever. I do. I think that this is not a one-year fix, but I think the Titans are on to something, man. And so I'm excited. I'm choosing to believe that this is going to work. And I think that the Titans can be a playoff team very, very soon. And I think Nashville, this is just so much good is on the horizon. So that's gonna do it for me today, folks. Again, I'm very excited to continue to do this thing, man. This is only episode number 2. Again, let me know, please. First of all, I forgot to say it earlier, but please like and subscribe, share this page. I want to continue to grow this because I want this to be a platform where I can start to go live, talk to you guys directly right in the middle of the show, things of that nature. We can just have a really good connection as just a Titans community, man. And as we build up, as we get closer to the season, I'm gonna continue to do this at least once a week, and we're gonna grow this thing. So please share this with a friend. If there's anything at all you guys would like me to talk about in my next episode, please let me know. We can just have a chat about it and figure this out together. But much love. Thank you guys who have already been showing me love. Please follow me on X, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok as well. It's Titans Traffic Update on all those platforms. So follow me, hit that like, subscribe button. Thank you guys for listening. Until next time, tighten up.